There's this story in the book of Acts of two guys, Paul and Silas. They were thrown in prison for preaching Jesus. The story reads like this. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly, there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. At once, the prison doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose. I recently heard of an experiment that was conducted to measure cortisol, the stress hormone. They did the experiment two ways with two monkeys. First, they put the monkeys in a dark room in two separate cages. Then they subjected them to loud sounds and flashing lights. Now, don't get mad at me, I'm just the messenger here. That's no way to treat a monkey. But their measurements were off the charts. Then they took both of the monkeys and put them in the same cage and did the same experiment. Same loud sounds, same flashing lights, but the stress when they were together was half of what it was when they were apart. Back to Paul and Silas, and that little "and" is the devil's problem. About midnight, Paul and Silas started singing. All the prisoners were listening to them, wanting to see how these followers of Jesus would respond in the darkness of a prison cell. And instead of seeing the stress and fear as they were physically bound in chains, they were an encouragement to each other and sang. And something happened. The foundations began to shake. I love how descriptive the Bible is. It doesn't just say that their chains were broken or their shackles mysteriously fell off. No, it says the foundations of the prison began to shake, which caused the prison doors to fly open. Question: are you facing something in your life right now that has you chained? Is there a broken relationship, a fear that has you paralyzed, an attitude you have towards something or someone, an addiction that has you in a prison? What you might not be aware of is that in the spiritual, your feet may be chained, but your voice can call on a power that goes beyond shackles. Your feet might be chained, but your hands can be raised. Your feet might be chained, but you can lift your eyes beyond the circumstances and beyond your bondage. Here's the principle. You need to use what is loose to shake off what is bound. Is there something in your life that needs some shaking? Is there a chain that has kept you in a prison of some kind? Maybe it's time to come together and use worship as warfare, because when we call out to Him, when we lift our eyes, when we stretch out our hands, our God is in the foundation shaking business. This ultimately was Jesus's purpose. Yes, He was a great teacher. He physically met the needs of thousands with food and miracles, but ultimately His purpose was to bring freedom. Through His death and resurrection, He broke the chains of sin so that all people might be saved. And at the Last Supper, Jesus tells His disciples that there is an earthquake coming, but on the other side, they will experience a freedom that can only be found in His sacrifice. I love how Matthew finishes telling the account of the Last Supper. Then they sang a hymn and went out. When we come together and Jesus is at the center of our worship, hope rises. When we come together and Jesus is at the center of our worship, miracles happen. When we come together and Jesus is at the center of our worship, chains will break. May we use what is loose to shake off what is bound.